So week 12 has wrapped up and now we're in the middle of playoff season. It's Thanksgiving week and this is when the most important football starts. Most games at this point are for playoff seeding. For a lot of teams, it's must-win season, especially for certain teams that are not quite where they should be. But we're getting into a very exciting part of the season in football. But let's take a look back at what happened this weekend. We'll start with Thursday Night Football with the Buffalo Bills and Houston Texans. Now, this was an upset that not a lot of people saw coming. I mean, sure, there were signs. Buffalo has not been playing the greatest football this season. And the Texans, well, they have literally the best defense in football. It's a complete oddity that their offense is this bad. With a defense this good, they really shouldn't have been 5-5 at this point in the season. If their offense had just been average, they'd probably lead the AFC South at this point. Their defense is that good, and their defense certainly showed up against the Bills. I mean, they harassed Josh Allen all game, forcing him to throw 2 interceptions and forcing another fumble. But even with the turnovers, the Bills had a chance at the end of the game. They drove down the field on the final drive, but then on 4th down, sure, it would have been called back even if they converted with an OPI, but that interception sealed the game, and now the Bills, the division's pretty much out of reach. Sure, they do play the Patriots again, but they're 3.5 games behind them. Unless the Patriots start losing a bunch with 6 weeks remaining, yeah, I don't see how the Bills come back for the division. They're just fighting for a wildcard spot now, which is not something we've seen for the past few years. The Bills have pretty much dominated this division since Josh Allen's arrived. And now they're looking at falling behind in their division for the first time in years. And the Texans, well, they went from their playoff hopes are dead at 3-5 to now they're in the thick of it. I mean, they're still somewhat of a long shot as their schedule is still pretty tough, but they have a chance, and that's all you need at this point in the season, especially with a crucial win against one of the wildcard teams. If Houston can get some wins, they could get a tiebreaker should Buffalo stumble a little bit. For the Texans, I'm putting at A tier. Now, the offense performance wasn't that great. They only put up 23 points, and yeah, Davis Mills only threw for 153 yards, and their rush attack wasn't exactly the most effective. But it was enough, and thanks to their defense doing a lot of heavy lifting this game, they get a critical win to keep their playoff hopes alive. Meanwhile, the Bills, they go in D tier. Let's be real, this was not a matchup they should have lost. And getting absolutely decimated on offense by the Texans defense, that's rough. I mean, the offense only scored 1 touchdown all game. Their other touchdown was a kick return touchdown. So the Texans defense was doing their job very well. But the Bills defense, yeah. The Bills defense is a genuine issue at this point in the season, and I predicted they would win the Super Bowl. With how bad their defense has been, I don't know that happens anymore. But granted, I don't know who goes to the Super Bowl out of the AFC right now. Next up, we have the Steelers and Bears, a battle of 2 teams who currently led their division. And whoever lost this risked losing their lead. And losing their lead could cause a lot of problems down the stretch. The Steelers, they're out of Aaron Rodgers this week due to a broken wrist and had to start Mason Rudolph this week. And the Bears, well, they're 7-3, needing a win to hold on to their division lead because the NFC North, it's a pretty tough division. And this was a pretty good game from the Bears for the most part. 328 yards of total offense, though the 2 turnovers, yeah, those were not pretty. They fumbled 2 drives in a row, which could have turned the game around in the Steelers' favor. I mean, it nearly did. The Steelers led 14-7 after the second fumble. Well, the second fumble didn't really change much since they turned it over on downs on the next drive, but it could have caused some serious problems and could have demoralized the Bears. That first fumble for a touchdown was a disaster of a play. Yes, it was a bad play. And you could have given up a safety, but no. Instead, Caleb Williams tries to throw it away, gets called a fumble, and returned for a touchdown. So made a bad play worse. And yeah, it could have gone a lot worse, but Steelers, they were up 21-17 at half. And the Bears, they got some drives going. They got a touchdown coming out of half, and they scored another touchdown in the fourth quarter to go up 31-21. Now then it started to become a problem because after a long Steelers touchdown drive, the Bears looks like they could be in trouble, and they straight up punted 2 straight drives in a row. 3 and outs to close the game is not a great way to go about things, but the Steelers, they couldn't do anything with the opportunity. So the Bears end up holding on to the lead in the game, as well as their lead in the division. So this was a very crucial win for the Bears. But, I'm gonna be real, this was not really the cleanest of wins, especially in second quarter where things got rocky, and they nearly let things go out of hand in the fourth quarter, but good enough to win, so another B tier for the Bears. I mean, all that matters is winning, and the Bears, with their first-year head coach, they're at 8 wins. Very good position to make the playoffs at this point. Meanwhile, the Steelers, I'm going to have to put them in D tier. We'll put them... Actually, no. We'll put them behind the Bills, just because, it was a bit of a worse loss for the Steelers. But they're down their starting quarterback, and the receiver they traded is balling out in Dallas, but that's a start of the season problem. Their run game was very good, and they were in position to win the game at the end, like the Bills, but their grade is dragged down because of how critical this loss was. The AFC playoff picture is going to be very tough, and honestly, one of the weaker divisions, surprisingly, is the AFC North. And the Ravens, they've been storming back and took the division lead after this game. And the Steelers, well, they're in a bit of trouble because I don't know if they can make the wild card at 9-8. So they need to start winning some games soon. Next up, we have the New England Patriots and Cincinnati Bengals. Well, the Patriots, they're at 10 wins for like the first time in years since the Tom Brady era. Well, not 10 wins. They did get to 10 wins at the start of the Mac Jones era, but they weren't 10-2 thanks to mostly their schedule. I mean, the Patriots have been pretty solid throughout the year. They've gone beyond expectations, and Drake May, he's a legitimate MVP candidate, but kind of a long shot at this point because his previous few weeks have been not the greatest, to be honest. And this could have gone haywire pretty quick. I mean, the Patriots, they were dominating the Bengals for most of the game. After going up 23-13 with 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, they nearly blew that lead. They let the Bengals get a quick touchdown drive to get back into the game, and, well, they do respond with a field goal, but going up 6 late in a game, when the other team only needs a touchdown to win it, that's a risky move. Fortunately for them, they stopped the Bengals before they could convert into a touchdown, but it got very close since they got just outside of the red zone, but Joe Flacco threw 3 straight incompletions to pretty much end the game, so Joe Flacco hasn't really worked out for the Bengals much outside of the one Steelers game. To be honest, if Joe Burrow was playing this game, they'd still have playoff hopes at this point, but in my opinion, Joe Burrow should just sit the rest of the season out. This season's over at 3-8. There's almost no chance they make the playoffs at this point, so even if they win all games, 9-8 will probably not be enough to make the playoffs. You only make your draft pick worse and risk another injury to Joe Burrow. I don't think that's wise to return Joe Burrow at this point, but the Patriots, they will go into B tier because they nearly blew this game, but they had a pretty good game before the fourth quarter. And the Bengals, for putting up a fight there, I'll put them in C tier, especially against the current number 1 seed in the AFC. So their season's over at this point, just hoping for a good draft pick to maybe solidify that O-line. Next up, we have the New York Giants versus Detroit Lions. This game ended up being a lot more than most people expected. I mean, you got the full Jameis Winston experience here. You got a lot of fun with him. He was slinging it, of course, through an interception in the fourth quarter, and had one of the most impressive quarterback trick plays I've ever seen. Have you ever seen a quarterback at receiver go 33 yards for a touchdown and break a tackle while doing it? That was one of the most impressive plays I've seen all season. I don't care about the really great catches we've seen. A quarterback doing that, it's impressive. Jameis Winston is honestly such a fun quarterback to watch. And he had the Giants up pretty big to start the fourth quarter, 27-17 against the Detroit Lions. The Lions, they were on the ropes. Yeah, the Lions did end up fighting back and win the game, but the Giants had so many opportunities to win this game. The defense just fell apart at the end, and even when it was close, 27-24 in the fourth quarter with just under 3 minutes to go, the Giants were on the Lions goal line and just couldn't get in. If they could get in, they would have gone up 2 scores, and that probably would ice the game because there was just not enough time left on the clock. I mean, maybe if the Lions scored fast, but yeah, it would have looked dicey, but instead, they fail to convert. The Lions drive down the field, get a field goal to tie the game. They go to overtime, and Jahmyr Gibbs instantly scores. Pretty unfortunate ending there. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs had one hell of a game. Over 200 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. I mean, yeah, this was one of the most impressive performances by any running back this season. And it was crucial because the Lions desperately needed to keep winning because they are not in first in their division. And they need every win they can get in order to stay alive in their division race and potentially take it back later in the season. If they lost this game, it could jeopardize their season. 6-5 in the NFC, that might not cut it for the playoffs. So, big win for the Lions. But this really shouldn't have been a game. The Lions should have been dominating, to be honest, but that did not happen, and instead they fell behind in the fourth quarter, but they were able to rebound. But I can't rate them highly. They did not need to be in that situation, so I'm going to be putting them in B tier, despite how impressive that comeback was. And the Giants, they go in dumpster fire. They are somehow the first team eliminated from the playoffs, even though they're one of 2 teams that have 10 losses at this point. The Titans only have 1 win, somehow technically still alive in the playoff race. I don't know how. They're also practically eliminated, but the Giants are the first team to be officially eliminated. Next up, we have the Minnesota Vikings versus the Green Bay Packers. We can officially say the Vikings season is over at 4-7 and 9, throwing 2 interceptions this game, as well as fumbling, but he did jump on top of that one. And when he threw those interceptions, it was in order to attempt a comeback that failed pretty miserably. I mean, the Packers' offense was not super impressive this game. Jordan Love only threw for 139 yards, but it was mainly the run game. They had 42 rush attempts this game. And Emmanuel Wilson, 107 yards and 2 touchdowns for an undrafted player. I mean, that's pretty impressive. You might have a pretty solid backup behind Josh Jacobs, who's expected to return next week, so that'll definitely help out the Packers' offense. And Micah Parsons, he showed up again today. He had 2 sacks. Bunch of pressures. I mean, the Vikings offense could not do anything all game. They only had a total of 145 yards. And the Packers, they dominated time of possession. 37 minutes versus 22. Yeah, it was a very big rushing attack for the Packers. And it was enough to win the game. Their defense did excellent this game. The offense, somewhat lacking, but it was a rush first game, so somewhat understandable. But I'm going to put them in S tier because this is a very critical win in order to stay alive in their division race. They are currently in second over the Lions because they have 1 less loss than the Lions due to their tie. Though I wasn't impressed with their offense, their defensive performance was very good here. And the Minnesota Vikings, they will be our first tier in F tier. 9 is in concussion protocol, but also you could see it as a somewhat soft benching because ever since he's returned from injury, he has not looked good. And honestly, the offense looked a lot better with Carson Wentz. But since Carson Wentz is on IR, they're going to be starting Max Brosmer, who apparently has been pretty good in practice, but we'll see how that looks in game. Can't be much worse than JJ McCarthy, though. We'll see if Kevin O'Connell can make his magic work with Max Brosmer. And maybe the Vikings can revive their season somehow, but I don't know. 4-7, that's very difficult to come back from. Next up, we have the Seattle Seahawks and Tennessee Titans. The Seahawks, this was a game they were supposed to win, and they did, though it did get a little bit dicey there at the end. If they didn't make that one stop, this could have been a whole different conversation, but they got up to a huge lead early, and the Titans managed to score a few drives. Wasn't exactly garbage time with how close it got, but Seahawks, they definitely had a comfortable lead for most of the game, and for good reason, because Jackson Smith-Njigba continues his Offensive Player of the Year campaign. He just passed DK Metcalf in single season yards. It's week 12. He might break 2,000 yards and break the receiving record. That is how good he's been this year. It's pretty impressive. Sam Darnold had a pretty solid game as well. 244 yards, 2 touchdowns. Pretty efficient passing as well. And the Seattle offense was pretty good for the most part until they let off the gas. And the Titans decided, hey, there's still a game to play. Why not just try scoring? When the Seahawks were up 30-17, with about 7:42 to go in the fourth quarter, the Titans, they got to the edge of the red zone, but then a holding call brought them back. Cam Ward got sacked, and then they were forced to try to convert a 4th and 21, which failed, and yeah, that was pretty much game there. But the Titans did go down the field and score another touchdown. Wasn't enough. They couldn't get the onside kick, and yeah, Seattle ends up winning, but it was a bit of a sweat there at the end. So though the Seahawks did dominate the Titans for the most part, I can only put them in A tier because of how close it got there at the end. Teams need to be careful letting off the gas with still a quarter left to go, even if you're up 30-10. We've seen enough big comebacks this year to know that's a very bad idea. The Titans, you know what? Despite being 1-10, they put up a good fight there at the end and could have stole one, but that didn't end up happening. They're still looking for the number 1 overall pick yet again. Also, speaking of breaking records, I forgot to mention earlier on in the video when I was talking about the Steelers, TJ Watt passed his brother JJ Watt in total career sacks against the Bears. So, pretty good job. Unfortunately, it was in a loss, but hey, pretty impressive career for TJ Watt. Next up, we have probably the biggest 1 p.m. game this week, the Colts versus the Chiefs. The Colts, they need to continue winning because their division rivals are starting to catch up a little bit. And the Chiefs, they desperately need a win to even stay alive in the playoff race because 5-6, that hasn't happened in the Andy Reid era. Losing 3 straight games, that hasn't happened with Patrick Mahomes as the quarterback. So the Chiefs were looking to avoid breaking history here. And the Colts, they needed this win to even stay alive in the number 1 seed race and potentially not jeopardize their lead in the division. But the Chiefs, they managed to stop Jonathan Taylor, holding him to only 58 rushing yards. And the rest of the Colts offense, they couldn't really do much afterwards. The Chiefs, they didn't even get a sack this game and still managed to win. And the Colts, meanwhile, they were able to get to Mahomes a few times. They got to him 4 times. And they forced 2 turnovers. Patrick Mahomes throws an interception. Kareem Hunt fumbles on a potential scoring drive. And still, the Colts could not come away with a win. After the Colts went up 20-9 at the start of the fourth quarter, they went 3 and out every single drive afterwards. And the Chiefs, they just went scoring drive after scoring drive after scoring drive to tie the game, bring it to overtime, and then eventually win in overtime with a game-winning field goal. This was a big win for the Chiefs, who can't afford many losses the rest of the way, since they have no tiebreakers against the current wildcard teams. And the Colts, their division lead is starting to be in jeopardy. With how critical this win was for the Chiefs, despite it not being the most impressive game, I'm also going to put it in A tier, but just ahead of the Texans because I think they have a better chance at the playoffs than the Texans. But this was a huge game for the Chiefs. Meanwhile, the Colts, For blowing a 20-9 lead where their defense was holding strong, I'm putting them in dumpster fire because this is now a loss that opens the door in the AFC South. And the Colts, they haven't played the Texans or the Jaguars yet. They play the Texans this week. So that's a very big game now. Next up, we have the Jets and Ravens. This was not the greatest of games to watch. Neither offense was all that good this game. In fact, we didn't have our first score until about 4 minutes left in the first half. And the Ravens didn't get their first score until about a minute left in the first half. Yeah, the Ravens offense did not look very good this game. But in the second half, Derrick Henry managed to punch it in 2 times, and it was enough to get the win, even though Lamar Jackson did not have a very good game. In fact, the Jets outgained the Ravens in this game. But the Ravens got to Tyrod Taylor a few times and got 2 crucial turnovers. Especially one where it was very close to being a touchdown for the Jets. And those 2 turnovers were enough to keep the Jets from even sniffing a comeback. And the Ravens hold on and continue their winning streak after starting 1-5 and taking the division lead here. Now, it was far from a very impressive performance, and I don't know. I'm going to put them behind the Lions because, well, the Lions did have a more impressive game. This was a kind of domination. Well, the defense actually stepped up. The offense was very bad this game. And honestly, the Jets offense isn't very good. So, yeah, I can't really put too much stock into the Ravens defense. But it has looked better over the past few weeks. So, they definitely have a chance to make some noise in the playoffs. If they can get there, that is. Meanwhile, the Jets, it's the Jets. And I'm going to put them in D tier. I'm going to put them behind the teams that almost had a chance of winning. The Jets, meanwhile, yeah, even if they got a touchdown on that one drive where they fumbled on the goal line, basically, I don't think they would have won anyway. It might have been a little bit closer, but I don't think they end up pulling out the win. Next up, we have the Cleveland Browns versus the Las Vegas Raiders. This was a kind of interesting game because it was Shedeur Sanders' first career start, and the Raiders, can they do anything against the Browns defense? No, actually. The Browns defense absolutely dominated the Raiders. 10 sacks. The Raiders could not move the ball because the Browns defensive line was constantly in the backfield. Ashton Genty, he didn't get many rush yards, but he was able to get some screen plays and did a little bit of damage there, but yeah, the Raiders offense was very ineffective. So was the Browns offense outside of a few run plays. Yeah, the Browns offense was very unimpressive, and though Shedeur Sanders, yay, he gets a win, his first career win. Congratulations. I don't think the result would have been any different from any other quarterback. I think Dylan Gabriel could have done the exact same thing. I mean, the Browns, they turned it over twice and still dominated the Raiders. This was the Browns defense dominating. Myles Garrett had 3 sacks, and he's looking to get Defensive Player of the Year this year, despite being on a 3-win team. That's an incredibly impressive feat. And in fact, he could break the sack record. His current pace is something like 25 sacks. And you want to know the crazy stat? Myles Garrett, yeah, he leads the league with 18 sacks. You know who's tied for second? Myles Garrett over the past 4 weeks. He's been incredible, and honestly, him and the defensive line single-handedly won the Browns this game. Also, some good run plays from Dylan Sampson and Quinshon Judkins here. And with how good the Browns defense played, I'm going to put them in B tier, even though I was not impressed by the Browns offense at all. And meanwhile, the Raiders, they will go into F tier. And after this game, they fired their offensive coordinator, Chip Kelly, who was the highest paid coordinator in the league. Yeah, looks like he scammed the Raiders. Also, they fired both their special teams coach and their offensive coordinator. So, yeah, there's going to be some serious changes for the Raiders coming this offseason because with a team of their talent, they should not really be 2-9, but kind of what happens when your offensive line is absolutely atrocious. Next up, we have the Jaguars and Cardinals. It's honestly crazy we've had 3 overtime games in 1 week. Shows how intense football can get at this point in the season, but this was was in overtime against one team that has playoff hopes and another team that doesn't, and it's not close. Look, the Cardinals, they play a lot of teams close, and this is not unexpected that the Cardinals would play yet another team very close. And let's be real, the Jaguars are not exactly the cream of the crop, but they are winning games, and this was a very critical win. To get to 7-4 and 1 game back of the Colts, that's pretty big. And they play the Colts in 2 weeks, so if they can maintain just 1 game back or even tied with the Colts, that would be a huge game in week 14. But speaking of this game, this was the Trevor Lawrence experience. He had some unlucky throws, he had some bad throws, but also when you needed it, he made some great throws. He had 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Also a fumble that ended up going for a touchdown. That was both his fault and not exactly his fault. The guy was unblocked, and Trevor Lawrence held the ball on probably half a second too long. And his first interception, which was in a very critical spot where the Jaguars were driving down the field, potentially get a touchdown, and in fact, Jacoby Myers was open. Yeah, it got tipped at the line and intercepted. There's your unlucky play. His next 2 interceptions, that was his fault. He got lurked twice, and that could have changed the game, but it really didn't, because the Cardinals, they did not capitalize much on the turnovers. They only scored 14 points. Yeah, they only have 24 points, so almost half their points were from turnovers, and they had 4. If you have 4 turnovers, you should be blowing a team out. But Cardinals defense, they did not do a great job of holding the Jags offense down. The Jags were still able to gain 370 yards. The Cardinals, meanwhile, they were gaining yards, not really converting much. They only had like 1 true touchdown drive where they went down the field and scored a touchdown. Cardinals' offense was mostly ineffective. They had no run game. Jacoby Brissett dropped back 55 times, which that's not great for the arm and his body, because he ended up getting sacked 6 times this game. And the Jags, well, they took it to overtime and ended up winning, even though there were some mind-boggling mistakes at the end of the game. Like the Cardinals, they go for it on their own side of the field for 4th and 12. They don't get it. And the Jaguars, 4th and 1, they go for it within field goal range. Yeah, you probably don't want to go up by 6 and let the other team know they need to get a touchdown to win. I can understand why that might make a team uncomfortable. But also the play they ran was not very good for a 4th and 1, and yeah, it was a very weird game. And to be honest, nobody knows what kind of team the Jaguars are at this point. Are they good? Are they not? No clue. I'm gonna put them in B tier because they made the plays when they needed to, and winning is a skill. They're winning games. They're 7-4 and in prime position to make the playoffs. Cardinals, meanwhile, I'm putting them in F tier, at least the top of F tier, because the loss wasn't nearly as bad as the other 2, but not being able to convert 4 turnovers into a win, that's not good. Also, leave it to the Jaguars to win a game after turning the ball over 4+ times. They're like the only team to do it in like the past 5 years, and they've somehow done it twice, which is very strange. Next up, we have the Eagles and Dallas Cowboys. Now, this was a game that honestly could have gone either way. I did not expect the game to go the way it ended up going. The Eagles, they go up early, 21-0. It looked like this would be an easy win for the Eagles. And then it wasn't. The Eagles straight up just didn't do anything for the rest of the game. The Dallas Cowboys just kept scoring. And when it looked like the Eagles might get a stop at the end of the game to even save it, they ended up doing nothing with the football, and the Cowboys go down the field and scored the game-winning field goal. And I don't know what was up with this game. Both teams missed a field goal. I mean, the Cowboys, they were not good at the start of the game. It looked like it could have been a blowout, and everything the Cowboys worked for in the trade deadline, it'd go up in smoke. No, the Cowboys offense managed to rally and get a huge win over the Eagles. Now, I don't think this prevents the Eagles from winning the division. They're still 3 games ahead of the Cowboys with 6 games to go. The Eagles would have to go on a generational losing streak to lose the division, which they have done before, but I don't find it all that likely. And the Cowboys, meanwhile, they have a very tough schedule ahead of them, and they can't afford to lose many games after this. But this was a crucial win for the Cowboys. So I'm going to put them up in A tier. Probably borderline S tier, to be honest, with how impressive that comeback was. That was a very impressive comeback and a very important game, because if the Cowboys, if they're sitting here 4-6-1, there's no chance they make the playoffs. But 5-5-1, sitting at exactly 500. I mean, if you squint, there's a playoff chance. So, but that's all you need. And they play the Chiefs, who are sitting right next to each other here. Play the Chiefs next on Thanksgiving. So that's going to be a very exciting game on a day where everybody watches football. So hopefully that's a good game. And both teams need a win there. And honestly, neither team has really differentiated themselves. The Cowboys, they have a great offense, but their defense, though been better over the past few weeks, has not exactly been great all season. And the Chiefs, they're just kind of mid, to be honest. They don't really do anything great right now, but we'll see if the Chiefs' pedigree comes into factor in this game. It's definitely a big game. Also, the Eagles losing that. Dumpster fire. I'm going to put them in last because 21-0 was the most embarrassing lead that's been blown probably all year. That was a bad game to drop. And now, well, the Eagles drop out of the number 1 seed, but they have the tiebreaker over the Rams, who I'm going to talk a little bit about later. So they can easily get back into that if they can just win games. But I know Eagles fans are panicking right now because they've seen this movie before. They don't want to relive it. Next up, we have the Falcons and Saints. Well, this game is actually pretty interesting because the Falcons, they're surprisingly not out of the playoff race. Though Penix is out for the season and Drake London, he's missing some time right now. If Kirk Cousins can get hot and get back to where we've seen him play, Falcons could get on a run here because the Buccaneers, they're stumbling a little bit. And the Panthers, they're not exactly the strongest of teams, though they also have a pretty good chance at the division. We'll see how it pans out in these last few weeks. But the Falcons, they got a pretty big win over the Saints. The Falcons, they've been losing since they beat the Bills, and they needed something to end that streak. And the Saints, they were just the trick. The Saints, well, they played okay, but turning the ball over twice isn't ideal, though Kirk Cousins turning it over isn't ideal, but it was enough. Bijan had an okay day, and Kirk Cousins was all right, but he did enough to win the game, and the defense also did a pretty good job here. They got to Tyler Shook 5 times. They completely shut down the run game after Alvin Kamara went down early, and they forced some turnovers, which was huge. And when the game looks like it could have gone into the Saints' favor after the Falcons just kept punting, the defense stepped up, got stops, and that was that. So actually pretty good effort by the defense. So I'm going to actually sneak them up into front of B tier because though it wasn't exactly the most impressive of wins, it was a pretty clear domination, and they didn't really allow the Saints back into the game. It's just they could have done a little bit more on offense, in my opinion, and turning the ball over, not great. Especially early on when things can go either way, especially with a pick 6. I'm not going to put all the blame on Kirk Cousins there. It was Kyle Pitt's fault that was an interception. Otherwise, that could have been a pretty solid game there, but no, Kyle Pitts had to have bricks for hands. Man, what a disappointing pick. Thought Kyle Pitts could do something this game. Nope, not really. I think the whole Kyle Pitts experiment is kind of over, and we should accept that he's kind of just a mid tight end at this point. I mean, we've known that for a few years, but it's just kind of sad to see. And the Saints, well, they're not really playing anything for this year. They're still technically in the playoff picture because the division is still kind of open, and if they can get hot, maybe there's an outside chance, but to be honest, it's very, very slim. And Saints fans, they're looking at mock drafts right now. I'm going to put them in D tier. And now we have our Sunday night game, the Buccaneers versus the Rams. This game looks a lot better on paper. The Bucs, they were a pretty good team early on in the season, and they've just since fallen apart. At one point, they looked like the best team in the league, and now they are sitting at 6-5 with their division chances in question. The Rams, meanwhile, they currently look like the best team in the NFL. They are just dominating everybody they play against, and it's complimentary football all around. Their offense looking very efficient, and their defense just shutting teams down. Also, bad news for the Buccaneers is that Baker Mayfield is hurt. Sprained AC joint. Fortunately, it's on his non-throwing shoulder, but that also could hold him out for a few games. And even when he tried to come back in and play, he was clearly in a lot of pain, and yeah, playing with that bad of an injury is gonna hurt no matter what, even if it's on your non-throwing hand. The Bucs offense just could do nothing all game. The Rams, they continue to impress, and they go at the top of S tier. Meanwhile, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that was outright domination. I'm putting them in F tier. They can't be losing like they have been, and yeah, this season could fall apart very quickly if they can't right the ship soon. And for our last game on Monday Night Football, we have the 49ers versus the Panthers. This was pretty much how we kind of expected the game to go. The Panthers, though they have 6 wins and are legitimate contenders for their division, they've really only beaten some bad teams. All their wins are against either division opponents or low quality teams. And even in many of their wins, they have not been all that impressive. Probably their best single win was over the Cowboys, who are currently at 500. But the Panthers have not beaten anyone legitimate for the playoffs. And yeah, this was kind of the result. The 49ers, despite all their injuries, they're still playoff contenders. They're making it work with the talent they have, and they dominated the Panthers this game. On defense, at least. Their offense was very shaky in the first half. If it wasn't so bad and Brock Purdy wasn't throwing to J.C. Horn every other play, I would put this up in S tier. But with how bad that first half was, I'm going to have to put it bottom of A tier, to be honest. It was pretty clear who was winning that game for most of the game. When the turnovers started happening, it wasn't so clear, but the Panthers offense could do nothing all game. And I'm going to put them in lower D tier because they were not able to do anything with the turnovers they generated, but it was still a fairly close game, and there was plenty of chances they had, but it just didn't perform well enough. But the Bucs fell this week. So, the Panthers still have a very clear shot at the division should the Bucs continue to fall apart. And these last few teams, they're all on bye. 2 of these teams are competing for a playoff spot. The other 2 teams, not so much. The Commanders, practically eliminated. The Broncos, they're going for the number 1 overall seed. The Chargers, they're looking to hold on to their playoff spot. And the Dolphins, technically a long shot, and they've been playing good football as of late. I just don't think it's enough. It's too little too late for the Dolphins. But anyways, what do you guys think of my tier list this week? Let me know where you would put these teams. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and sub. It lets me know you guys actually like these videos. Anyways, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.